of Watertown's early Pop Warner program. Probably as one of 10 children, he had good use for his football skills. Graduated from Watertown High in 1966 following a stellar year in which he was all-scholastic in football and the captain of the basketball team, plus president of the senior class. He played offensive tackle and fullback with relish. As he would note later, he liked to hit. It was a trait that served him well as he went to Holy Cross on a full scholarship. There he continued his involvement both in athletics and in the neighborhood. Among other activities, he was a member of the Purple Key Society and received the college's Presidential Service Award for his outstanding contributions to campus and community life. All in all, as the Worcester Telegram noted, he was a doer and not a talker. He did on the football field as well. He made the varsity team as a freshman. By his junior year, he'd become one of the top tackles in New England. Gary was so well thought of that he was drafted by the Miami Dolphins despite a team-wide outbreak of hepatitis at Holy Cross, which led to the cancellation of 8 games during his senior season. Gary graduated with honors in 1970. He was named to the Holy Cross All-Decade football team. While at Holy Cross, Gary had doubled as an outstanding rugby player, and he continued to pursue his interest after college. He captained a team of Eastern All-Stars that played an international tournament in South Africa, and he was later named to the United States rugby team, the first national team to represent the United States internationally since 1924. He played against the Australian and French national teams, and in 1977 was on the United States team that toured England and played the English national team. He was also president of the Boston Rugby Club, which won the 1976 New England Championship. Going to Case Western Reserve University, Gary graduated with a law degree. Coming back to Watertown, he worked in the county court system before becoming assistant to the Watertown Legal Department in 1974. When the town made the decision to hire a full-time counsel, Gary was a unanimous choice. And in 1978, he became Watertown's first town attorney. 10 years later, he became the city solicitor for the city of Worcester, the job he still holds. I had the pleasure of coaching Gary for that shortened season at Holy Cross. The one thing that impressed me more than anything else, more than his football skills and his ability, was his character. Gary was a strong individual on that team, and when we had the situation occur to us to have the season canceled, it was Gary that the team rallied around. He was a superb football player, but more than anything else, he's a gentleman. It's a pleasure for me to introduce to you into the Watertown Hall of Fame, Gary Brackett.
Thank you very much, Bob, for that kind introduction. My thanks to Bob Caprillion and the committee for their establishment of this Hall of Fame, and to Nick Pappas for having nominated me this year. It's especially a humbling experience to be up here this evening and to see all the tremendous athletes who have attended Watertown High School, played so proficiently, and gone on to lead productive athletic, family, and business careers. And it's also especially I appreciate being here in light of the fact that Red Daughters and Dick Berardino, other Holy Cross graduates who preceded me, have done so well as much as they have done, and to be in their company. One of the things I'd like to point out, in addition to the athletic aspects, is that Watertown, I think, during my growing up, was such a wonderful melting pot. I was fortunate to have been one of 10 children from a family with my grandparents coming here on my mother's side from Italy, and my father's parents coming here from Ireland. And as one of 10 children growing up in a large family, I had the love and support of my parents in everything I undertook. A lot of times I was able to get away with quite a bit because there was so much activity going on in the house. Nobody knew where I was, and really I was able to sneak around quite a bit. But I was able to develop a tremendous appreciation for athletics in Watertown, and I was gifted with certain physical skills that proved to be somewhat of a challenge for some of my coaches. I remember fondly the support people like John Mantenuto gave me in the elementary school system, and people like Bob Dupree and Dick DeJarian in junior high. I'm sure I proved quite a challenge to Dick sometimes in terms of learning how to develop a softness to a shot in basketball so that the shot didn't careen back out to mid-court once it hit the backboard. In high school, having Frank Cousino for football, Jim Adams, Jack Allen in basketball, Victor Palladino as a tremendous athletic director, and supporters like Charlie Auburn, who wanted to make the programs in Watertown work, and worked overtime to assure that the athletes were given the support that they needed in order to be a success. We didn't have the most successful senior year in football. We won our first game and lost the next 8. And it got a little tight during the end of the year when we only had about 35 to 40 people available going into the Belmont game. But I have a fond recollection of that particular game, and the day after, when we returned to school on Monday after the Belmont game, a fellow walked up to me and said, Gary, I understand that your mother was at the game on Thanksgiving Day. I said, well, how could you tell it was my mother? He said, well, every time you carried the ball from your fullback position and got tackled, she jumped up in the middle of the stands yelling and screaming, get off him, give him air. That went on throughout the entire game. Needless to say, I was fortunate that we didn't win that game, but I had some memorable recollections. I'm especially thankful as well to Bob Gleason, who one day when I was walking along the first floor at Watertown High School took me aside and said, make sure you do as much as you can this year in terms of academics. Make sure that you apply yourself. Holy Cross is interested in you. And I'd only heard of Holy Cross through the newspapers, over the radio or television. And when I first had a chance to go to Holy Cross with the help of Peter McGrath, a Watertown resident, and on the suggestion of Bob Gleason, it proved to open up a tremendous opportunity for me. While we did have our problems in terms of the athletic program there, we had 3 different head coaches in 4 years. We started our senior season with every expectation. We had a new head coach from Princeton. In the second game of the season, we found out that half the team was coming down with hepatitis. And memorable experience, we drove up to Hanover, New Hampshire to play Dartmouth. And of the original 40 people on the bus, we only had about 31 the morning of the game. And Dartmouth dressed probably 100 people and came out on the field in single file. And I still remember that that was one of the more intimidating scenes I've ever had experienced in athletics. And yet, during the course of that game, somehow or other the group that we had, knowing that we had some questionable illness, at the end of that game, losing 38-0, we were able to somehow or other come together, march down the field, and score. And that was one of only 4 touchdowns scored against Dartmouth that year as they won the Ivy League championship. It taught me a tremendous amount in terms of what people can do under adverse circumstances. It taught me the benefits of discipline and application that people like the coaches and the teachers that we experienced here in Watertown taught us through the years. People who don't agree with my legal opinions, when they find out that I play rugby, say, now we know what his problem is. He plays football without a helmet. And I always thought that rugby was the perfect sport for a frustrated lineman. There's a ball on the ground, you get to pick it up and run with it. Anybody can run with it. It was a great combination of basketball and football, and it proved to be a wonderful opportunity to continue participation in athletics as recently as last year when I finally decided to retire from old boys rugby. But I would like to acknowledge the support of one individual who was a great supporter, a great athlete from Watertown, and a very good supporter of athletic programs in Watertown, as well as my personal enjoyment of both athletics and the practice of law. And that was Herb Berry. Herb was an outstanding athlete from Watertown, went on to Bates College, had an outstanding athletic career there, went on to law school, had a practice in Boston for a number of years, served as town attorney, and I had the pleasure of working with him for a number of years. And Herb, during a time when I had a chance to play rugby at the national level during 1976 and 77, Herb allowed me the time away from my duties, which allowed me to have the opportunity to play for the United States against England at Twickenham National Stadium outside of London, England. And it's the recollection of that understanding that Herb gave me, an appreciation for athletics as part of a commitment at that time to the profession of law. And I see that in the teaching staff in Watertown, that athletics and academics can go hand in hand, and all of us should come away from here tonight with a commitment to supporting each of those components of the Watertown school system. So thank you once again, and it's a humbling experience to be here, but I thank you for